It all started like any other day in our quiet town. I'm just an ordinary father, trying to provide a good life for my family. But then, the unimaginable happened. My daughter, Sybil, fell ill. It began with a fever, a simple fever, they told us. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Sybil was a bright, vibrant girl, full of life and energy. She had a smile that could light up the darkest room, and her laughter was a melody that brought joy to our home. But when the fever struck, that laughter faded, replaced by a look of confusion and pain in her innocent eyes. As the days turned into weeks, Sybil's condition took a terrifying turn. Her fever raged on, her once rosy cheeks grew pale, and the light in her eyes faded. The doctors were baffled, running test after test, but they couldn't offer a diagnosis. I watched in helpless despair as my daughter's life slipped through my fingers. My wife and I took turns by Sybil's bedside, our hearts heavy with worry. We held her tiny hand, hoping that our touch could somehow ease her suffering. But there was a growing sense of dread that we were losing her, that whatever had taken hold of our daughter was beyond the understanding of modern medicine. One chilling night, I sat by Sybil's bedside, and an eerie presence filled the room. Shadows danced on the walls, and an icy breeze swept through, sending a shiver down my spine. Sybil's eyes snapped open, but they held a vacant, distant gaze. I felt a malevolent force lurking nearby. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of what was happening. Sybil's body seemed to convulse, and her limbs twitched uncontrollably. It was as though something had taken control of her, something that was not of this world. I called out to my wife, and together, we watched in horror as our daughter writhed in agony. Whispers filled the room, soft and indistinct at first. It was as though voices from another world were beckoning. Sybil's gaze remained locked on me, but her eyes were different, hollow, distant, and filled with an otherworldly knowledge. The whispers grew louder, their words incomprehensible. They seemed to come from all around us, as though the very walls of our home were speaking. My wife and I exchanged terrified glances, unable to make sense of the surreal nightmare that had descended upon us. Desperation overcame me as I watched my daughter change before my eyes. I reached out to her, trying to understand what was happening, but her voice came out in a garbled, incomprehensible language. Her skin seemed to shift and ripple, as if something lurked just beneath it. I could see the fear in my wife's eyes mirrored in my own. We were helpless, trapped in a waking nightmare that defied all reason. Our once healthy daughter had become a vessel for something dark and malevolent, and there was no escape from the horror that had befallen our family. In my quest for answers, I stumbled upon an ancient diary tucked away in the attic. Its pages were filled with cryptic drawings, strange symbols, and disturbing accounts of an illness that had plagued generations of our family. The diary spoke of a malevolent entity, a curse passed down through bloodlines. As I read the diary's entries, a chill ran down my spine. The descriptions of the illness that had afflicted my ancestors mirrored Sybil's condition in eerie detail. The diary told of a darkness that had haunted our family for centuries, a darkness that now threatened to claim my daughter. As I delved deeper into the diary's pages, it became clear that Sybil was not the first in our family to fall victim to this curse. The entity that had tormented generations of my ancestors had now turned its attention to my daughter. It craved something within her, something beyond my understanding. My research led me to believe that this malevolent force was not bound by the laws of the natural world. It was something ancient and supernatural, a darkness that had plagued my family for generations. I knew then that I had to find a way to confront it and free my daughter from its grip. Determined to save my daughter, I sought the guidance of a reclusive expert in the occult, a woman known for her knowledge of ancient curses and supernatural forces. She lived on the outskirts of town, in a ramshackle house that seemed to have 1 foot in our world and 1 foot in another. The occult expert listened intently as I recounted the horrors that had befallen my family. She nodded solemnly, her eyes filled with a deep understanding of the darkness that had taken hold of my daughter. She told me of a ritual, a dangerous and forbidden act, that might allow me to confront the entity and free Sybil from its grip. In the dead of night, we gathered the necessary materials and began the ritual. Candles flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls, and an unnatural chill settled in the room. The occult expert chanted incantations in a language I could not comprehend, and I followed her lead, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. As we chanted, the room seemed to come alive with a palpable energy. I felt a presence drawing near, an ominous force that threatened to consume us. Shadows writhed and danced around us, and I could hear the whispers of the entity growing louder, more insistent. The ritual reached its climax, and I faced the entity that had tormented my family for generations. It was a nightmarish vision, a grotesque amalgamation of shadows and whispers. Its form shifted and contorted, its malevolence radiating from every shadowy tendril. I knew that this was the moment of reckoning, the final battle between light and darkness. With every ounce of strength left in me, I banished the entity back to the depths from whence it came. The room trembled, and the entity let out a deafening roar of rage and despair. As I stood there, drained and exhausted, I felt a sense of victory wash over me. I had saved my daughter, freed her from the clutches of this ancient evil. But the cost of victory was high. I had become a vessel of darkness, forever tainted by the entity's curse. In the days that followed the ritual, I struggled to come to terms with what had transpired. My daughter had been spared, but I had become a living conduit for the malevolent force that had plagued my family for generations. I could feel its presence within me, a darkness that threatened to consume my very soul. The entity spoke to me in whispers, its voice a sinister seduction. It revealed its true nature, a malevolent being that had existed for centuries, feeding on the suffering and despair of my family. It hungered for something within us, something it could never truly possess. I knew that I could not allow the entity to take control of me, to use me as a weapon of darkness. I had to confront it, to banish it once and for all. My wife and I sought out the occult expert once more, desperate for guidance on how to rid ourselves of this curse. Together, we devised a plan to confront the entity and seal it away forever. It would be a battle of wills, a final showdown between the darkness that had haunted my family and the love that bound us together. We gathered our strength and prepared for the ultimate confrontation. In the end, it was a father's love that prevailed. With every ounce of strength left in me, I confronted the entity within, a battle that raged within the depths of my soul. Shadows clashed, and whispers turned into a deafening roar. My wife stood by my side, her unwavering love a beacon of light in the darkness. As the entity's grip on me weakened, I felt a surge of power, a force of light that pushed back the darkness. With a final burst of determination, I banished the entity once and for all. It let out a scream of rage and despair, fading into the shadows from whence it came. As I penned down this harrowing account, I am no longer the father I once was. The entity's curse now resides within me, and I am forever bound to the shadows that haunt our family's history. But I carry with me the knowledge that love and sacrifice can conquer even the darkest of forces. My hope is that this story serves as a cautionary tale to others who may encounter the inexplicable horrors that lurk just beneath the surface of our world. It is a reminder that the power of love and the strength of the human spirit can overcome even the most malevolent of entities.